right, so Shannon, I have to ask you. All right, so we know that glamour as a genre is mostly dominated by male photographers. I mean, that's just a fact. I'm not trying to go there. That's just a fact, right?
Yeah.
So someone like yourself who does do intimate portraiture of women, what is your take on sort of traditional glamour, be it classic or modern day? How do you feel about it? What does it mean to you as a woman?
I don't find it to be threatening at all to see that there's a lot of men in the industry. I think a lot of the men in the industry actually are doing a lot of positive work with it, despite some of the stories that you might hear from other people.
And there are a lot of those.
There are a lot. I do love that there's a lot more women in the industry coming up and speaking out, not just in glamour. Boudoir can kind of be close to it, even though they're a little bit more separate, I think, than people realize. But really walking in as a woman with this industry, it's nice to have a little bit more of a feminine point of view. And a lot of that can come just from how I'm posing my clients, how I'm speaking to my clients. Sometimes it can be hard, for a man to walk up and be like, I need you to do this pose. I need you to do this sexy thing.
Right.
So really walking in as a woman, I guess in a way I would have a little bit of a benefit because I'm already automatically making somebody feel more comfortable.
Yeah.
Because I'm literally the same as them.
And of course, we hear comparisons all the time of glamour and boudoir, and I'm adamant in the fact that they're not the same thing at all. Boudoir is more of a service, glamour is commercial, but at the same time, some of my clients, my female clients, want a glamour look, which is like boudoir, but extremely public. Now, I've always said, and I still champion the idea that a woman, or really anybody, but a woman should be able to express herself however the hell she wants when it comes to her sexuality, right? But a lot of people look at glamour when, a guy shooting glamour, they assume all the negative things, and it makes sense why. There's certainly plenty of reasons and arguments why. But I can say that as a man, a woman should be able to express herself any way she wants. Mm-hmm. I can say that with confidence, but what is a woman's stance on that? Like, everybody has a different threshold, I know, but isn't there too much criticism on women expressing themselves sexually?
I think it kind of depends on where you live as well. Like, being a boudoir glamour photographer living in Missouri, I am in a state that it tends to be a little bit more conservative. Mm-hmm. So it really kind of depends on what I want to put out there for my clientele. A lot of my clientele being a little bit more boudoir, like service related, I tend to keep things a little bit more conservative for the most part. Even in my glamour work, it is a lot more conservative. Things that I'm sharing online too are going to be pretty much Instagram, Facebook safe as well. I think it kind of just depends on where you're from as well. Some people might think that something is risque, the next person might not.
Right.
I don't think it necessarily has to come from a point of view if you're male or female as well. I think that kind of just is an own personal perspective on that.
I see. So, again, another thing that I like to say with confidence is that glamour it should be or can be empowering for a woman, and people sometimes wholeheartedly disagree. And I don't mean boudoir, which is very private. I mean glamour in general, however you want to define it. Is it in fact empowering from a woman's perspective?
I 100% think so. I don't see anything wrong if somebody wants to pose in lingerie, in a bathing suit, and do something that would be a little bit more, even if it's private, if it's Playboy related, whatever it may be, I don't see anything wrong with it personally. And I think that that's really going to attract who's in your corner and who your clientele is as well. You're not going to please everybody. And I think that that's important, no matter if you're walking in as a male photographer or female photographer, to know that you need to really stick with your brand and who you are. I 100% think that glamour is empowering. If you are empowered by being in your lingerie or even doing something nude, you should 100% do it.
Okay. Because, that's how I've always seen it, and that's always how I try to approach it. And, of course, there's criticism even in the boudoir world, this indecent. I'm not even talking about extreme people who are extremely conservative. I don't think you're ever going to win them over. But how would, as a female photographer, as a woman in general, how would you go about, explaining to someone that, no, actually glamour isn't this exploitive mess that it seems like it is, or rather it doesn't have to be? What are some, kind of language would you use to try to explain to someone who's not in the industry who thinks, what would I hire a glamour photographer for?
Well, a lot of times I have that conversation with people via email. If somebody reaches out to me, I want to do a shoot, but I'm really uncomfortable with X, Y, or Z, whatever it may be, I really have that conversation, this is what we're going to do. A big thing for me, too, is letting people know their comfort level as well. And I will separate the two. If I'm working with a paid client coming into my studio,
Yeah.
and it's going to be a little bit more boudoir and a little bit more of they're hiring me for this thing, we're definitely working with their comfort level. I'm not going to push them towards anything. Some people feel more comfortable and free being completely naked. Some people don't. If I'm doing something that's a little bit more glamour related, and that's going to be somebody I'm hiring, like a model, I'm still going to ask them their comfort level. I do need to speak with people that possibly have hired me for that job as well, and really talk to them about what they're looking for. But for me, my main thing is comfort. I don't want somebody to walk in, think they're walking into one thing and they get another. Right. So really, communication for me is the number one thing, even more than shooting it itself. Like, we can all shoot and do the lighting, but having that communication with the client and with whoever I'm shooting is vastly important.
Right. Now, I completely agree with that, because especially as a male photographer who almost exclusively shoots females, the communication is incredibly important. But for me, the challenge I always have is making sure that I kind of use certain language to make sure that she knows that what my intent is at. Because the intent that people will label you with as a male photographer is, well, we know why you do
And
this.
language will be different for you than it would be for me.
Yeah.
I stick a little bit more with, even though my personality definitely comes across when I'm shooting and I'm talking with clients, but I want to make sure that my verbiage is very, very important as well. I never want to say anything that I would think would make my mother blush. If I really had to put it bluntly and put it that way, like, what is going to be important when I'm speaking to somebody? One, even if I've shot with them a million times, I'm not going to say anything that's inappropriate. Right. I'm going to let them know. We might make silly little jokes, but again, they're always going to be on the appropriate level, because we are doing a job and it's supposed to be professional at that time. But I mean, for men, it's going to be that level times 10. There's a lot of things you're not going to be able to say. There's a lot of things you're not going to be able to do. You're going to need somebody to come in and adjust, like a stylist. You're going to need them to come adjust their own things. So it's going to be very, very different walking into that world as a man.
It is, but it's like walking a fine line in general, not just because, for example, if I'm going to talk to a client or a collaborator and I want to convey my idea, yes, there's a bunch of things I shouldn't say, and why would I? Because that's terrible. Who would be rude and crass in that situation? But at the same time, there has to be an openness and a frankness about the sexuality that's involved. You know, if you're wearing transparent lingerie, it's transparent lingerie. We don't have to harp on that idea necessarily, but we have to be open to what we're trying to create. So that language selection is very, very important to me. It's not just the on-set communication, but the overall idea. Because when someone sees my work on social media or something like that, I'm not there to defend myself, as it were. Yeah. Right? So I guess the intent, I work really hard to make the intent show in the shots as best I possibly can. And I know I might carry that a little bit, I carry that sort of stigma and that burden because I want to fight against it as often as I can. And I think I know it's a big motivating factor for me in the work I create, in the way I guide a shoot or to take the styling in a certain direction. No, I don't want to do that, not just because I don't like it, but I know how that's going to come across. Right? Yeah,
and I think that there is kind of like the old feeling of glamour photographers, especially men, to be just right away that they're not good people and they're doing this just to like be around a woman in their underwear.
To be clear, there's just a lot of that.
There is a lot of that, but I have actually seen more of a positive shift in industry leaders as well. You included in that, where it is a little bit more positive and it's body positive and it's female empowering. And I think that is a really good shift. I think we have a long way to go.
Sure. That's for sure.
And I don't necessarily even say that the word feminist for you or other glamour photographers that I'm talking about, but I think that there's a shift in the right direction of, it's not just we're shooting this to photograph nude women or women in their lingerie, but we're shooting this with intent. Right. And I think intent is really important for this.
Yeah, because I've always felt like there's got to be a certain honesty about it. It's beautiful and it's sexy, and there's nothing wrong with it being that. Mm-hmm. But intent is such a fine line, and everybody has a different threshold. I know for a fact, no matter what I create as a male photographer of women, somebody's going to be offended. You know what I mean? And I don't mean that in the token sort of prototypical, people are snowflakes or whatever. No, you don't have to be a snowflake. Just people have different thresholds. You know what I mean? I don't try to label my critics anything negative. I understand that they're out there because of the realities of so many people in this industry. So I know I sound like an apologist a lot of times. I try to kind of work against that stigma. I try not to align myself with that vibe or whatever. But at the same time, there's a certain frankness in that sexuality, even if it's somewhat aggressive sexuality, at least the way I do it anyway, right? Mm-hmm. I don't think that hang-up that we have as a society on sexuality is is necessarily healthy. I think that exploring that, even if it's a little subversive to people, is important to me. Now, with that said, though, like I said, mentioned earlier, everybody's threshold is a little bit different, so you can't please everybody all the time. And there's that subversiveness that I enjoy. Is that something that a woman getting photographs like this could enjoy? Almost like sticking your middle finger up to society. I can do this because I want to. Some girls tell me that. What's your thought on that? That maybe a little bit extra, stick it to the man. I'm going to be sexy because I can. Do you feel like that's an empowering element?
I think it can be. I think even personally for myself too, when even photographing my clients like that, I feel the empowerment that they're feeling.
Sure.
And I mean, kind of going back to talking about comfort level too, if at any point where I feel like I'm photographing somebody, even a glamour model for a commercial shoot, wherever it may be, if I'm starting to feel them uncomfortable, I'll take a second and I'll talk them through it.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's just a little like, I'm just uncomfortable just because, this is a new thing for me, or I'm a newer model, or this is new, like a new outfit or something for me. I think, again, kind of answering that question with communication, I think is really important. Now, sometimes with certain commercial shooting, you don't always have time.
Sure.
But I think if you can try to take even 20 seconds and just like comfort somebody, really let them know your personality, which I think is like really, really important. Even kind of voicing that online when you're posting. I know that kind of maybe sound kind of silly, but even just captions to kind of show that you're different. You're setting yourself apart. Clearly your shooting is setting itself apart, but how can you set yourself apart? By really speaking to your client and speaking to your audience to let them know, like, I'm not just photographing these women because I can, I'm photographing them because I want to. I want them to feel like empowered. I want them to feel important. I want them to be, and especially with glamour and for what you shoot, I want them to be excited to see their cover. They're on the magazine cover. I want them to feel like this is a thing that I did and I felt empowered. I never felt uncomfortable during it because of who I was shooting with, or they never, like, one thing I hear a lot is they never spoke to me as they were shooting me. Yeah. They just photographed me.
Which feels exploitive.
To me, it just feels really weird because when I'm shooting, I tend to be a little quiet, but then I don't shut up. Like, I want to speak to my client. I want to speak to the person I'm shooting with, whether in my home studio or on a set. Like, I want to know who I'm shooting, because for me, that's important as well. Especially if it's anything that's going to end up in a portfolio of mine. I want to know, like, that was an awesome day because this person was awesome too. Like, so that's important for me as well.
So is, in fact, in your opinion, as a woman, is glamour, in fact, empowering? Is it sort of, in the same vein or aligned with feminism, as it were? That's a kind of a loaded question.
It's a very loaded question.
But is it, in your opinion? I know there's variables, but in general, or is it? Do men who do this, including myself, are we lying to ourselves? Do we have a delusion or some kind of idea that we're more important than we are, or can it be that?
I think it's kind of on the way to be empowering and important, which sounds, again, kind of a weird loaded way to answer your loaded question as well. I think it's on its way. I think, like a lot of things, it takes time. Yeah. People to understand feminism, it takes time. I think with the right education, the right photographers and instructors, I think that is possible to prove that it is important work. I personally think it is, not just because I'm in the industry as well and because I know you and other glamour photographers, but I do think it is important. I think that everybody has a different idea of what is sexuality.
Yeah, exactly.
For some, it is being quiet and a little more covered up.
Correct.
For others, it is complete nudity. It really just depends on who you are, and I don't think that there should be the stigma or the shame that comes with that. I mean, I think there always will be. Not everybody's always going to agree with you. There's always going to be some comment online or something.
Yeah, of course.
But if you're empowered and you're comfortable with it, then I think that's really what matters.
I think a lot of people, certainly for me, I don't know what your clientele comes to me, but people who, let's say, don't know glamour, they don't know the industry at all. And they ask me, they're like, you take pictures of beautiful women in various states of undress, Nino. How do you go about doing that? And the truth is, I have never once asked a model to shoot nude. I've never asked a model to shoot any type of undress. It's always their idea. Mm-hmm. It's always their initiative, and oftentimes I talk them out of it. Like, I don't think that's going to work here. It's going to look tacky, in my opinion, and here's why. I actually never. I think that's one question I get asked a lot is why do you go intentionally to try to go get women and shoot them naked? Not so much. They want me to do that, and I take that very seriously. It's like an obligation to convey them in the most powerful way. I cannot stand glamour that looks even a little exploitive. If she doesn't look like she's into it.
And I think that there is a difference between when you do look at images. Like for me, I grew up in the art world, and I grew up with a lot of art history, so a lot of the male gaze is a big part of verbiage that I know and like how I shoot as well. And I think that there is a difference between doing things that have a heavy male gaze to it and things that are going to come across a little bit more feminine even. And I don't think feminine is a bad word for a male photographer to have in like what he does as well. I think being feminine is really, really important, and especially for models. Now, I don't think it's anything bad for if you're shooting glamour for a man. I think if he comes off a little bit feminine. I think those words can be so interchangeable. Right. Maybe putting a suit jacket on a woman might come off as masculine, but I don't think that that's necessarily true.
Okay, that makes sense. No, the reason why I bring that up is that when it comes to any type of artwork that involves any type of sexuality, you can even flip it around. A woman shooting nude men. Okay, you can flip it around that way if you want. People always question the intent. Like, well, I know why you're really doing this, or whatever the case may be. And with that assumption comes, well, how do you get these girls naked, or some, just horrible, crass questions like that. And I just have to constantly remind people, I don't.
Questions like that are funny to me, though, because we know as working as professionals, when somebody comes onto your set or they're in your studio, you pretty much go into work mode. And having somebody nude or in lingerie in front of you is literally just tunnel vision of you working. Like, you want to get your lighting right, you want to get the wardrobe right, whatever it may be. If you have a staff with you, they're paying attention to those things too. So I think that it's a little less of how do you get to photograph women like this, and a little bit more of when you're focused on it, you're focused on it. And there's a goal. Maybe there's an end goal of publication. Maybe there's an end goal for some of my clients, which would be gifts for their significant other. So really my job is to deliver on product, is the same with you as well. Whether it be glamour, whether it be boudoir, whether it may be, it's really about delivering a final product. It's less about, great, I have this person in front of me, XYZ, whatever it may be, and more about like you as a working professional. And I think that's what's going to really set people apart, is the people that want to photograph women like this, and the people that have this as a business and want to continue doing that as well.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with all of that. And I appreciate, again, thank you actually for sitting down with me, because I want to kind of get the female perspective on all of that. Now, I will say though, I mean, let's be honest, there is a problem. I don't think I want to open that topic up right now, but there's definitely a problem out there. It's been on for a while, but I was curious, what is a female photographer's take on that?
Yeah, and I don't know, I guess the word problem is important to say there, but I think it's something that is going to constantly be part of the industry. Unfortunately, I wish it was something that we could just change tomorrow, and it's not going to be a stigma for a man to shoot glamour, or even a woman to shoot maybe just nude men, but I think definitely the issue that comes up for people a lot is a man photographing a woman and photographing her in states of undress as well. And again, it's going to be a difference between somebody who's walking in and clearly just has a camera and wants to do it, and somebody who's a working professional doing it as a professional, doing it for intent.
Completely agreed. Again, thank you, Shannon. I appreciate you coming out and chatting with me a little on this beautiful day here in St. Louis. Thanks a bunch.
Thank you.